1.
So Jim, who or what brought you to JSU school?
That's an interesting story. I started school at another school in Northeast Philadelphia, and I had 110 children in my class at that time, both boys and girls. It was during very difficult economic times. It was 1937. On top of that, I lost a number of sick days. As a matter of fact, I think I had more sick days in my first year in school than I had for the rest of my life. But at any rate, I didn't think I was developing intellectually because of the size of the class, but also because of the number of days I had lost due to illness. But at any rate, I got passed along to the second grade. And in second grade, I came home from school one day, and I noticed this large truck outside my house, and they were taking all of our furniture out into the truck. I asked my mom what was going on. She said, "Jim, we're going to have to leave this house because we can't pay the rent." The rent at that time was about $25 a month. But at any rate, everything went into storage. My father could never pay later on to get the furniture back because he couldn't pay for the storage charges. So at any rate, I lived with two other great aunts for the next 2 years. And in that second year, one of my mother's cousins called us, told us that there was a house available down the street from her in the JSU parish, right around the corner from the school. And the rent was only $12 a month. Well, that was really exciting to think that we were going to be able to go into our own house. So that was in June of 1940, before the Second World War had started. And at the same time, I was all set to start at the JSU school. I was going to enter the 4th grade. I started the day after Labor Day in September of 1940. And I must say that was probably the greatest day in my life for what it brought about in later years. The second day I was in school, Sister Thomas Francis sent me down to the music room. And I didn't know what it was all about, but I think later on I suspected she thought I had a musical voice. But at any rate, the woman that was at the piano, she asked me to sing the scale. So I started Do, Re, and she immediately said, "Next." So I knew that was not my future career. Fortunately for me, I got an invitation from Brother Joseph A. Fee at the rectory, who asked me if I wanted to join the altar. I didn't know at that time what that would contribute to my future life. But at any rate, I continued to have this devotion to the school because of the many things that were offered to me in my school years at the JSU.
What were some of those things, Jim, that were offered to you? What made JSU back then so special?
Well, as I advanced into the other years at the JSU, Father Lenny, who was the principal of St. Joseph's Prep at that time, I was in the 7th grade, he came out into the schoolyard where I was playing and invited me to join the prep band. He wanted to know, first of all, was I thinking of going to the prep? And I said, I sure am. So he asked me to come and went in on that Saturday and see if I could compete to join the band. So I took some opportunities with the clarinet and the trumpet, but I think my lips were not developed the proper way to handle either of those two instruments. So anyway, they put me on the trombone, which had a larger mouthpiece, and that was just perfect for me. As people know, I'm a great storyteller. But at any rate, I took those lessons while I was in the 7th and 8th grade. I entered, and I was able to play in the prep band when I was in the 8th grade. We went on to play at the prep. We were a concert band and a marching band. We played up and down the East Coast. We played at Georgetown, Woodstock College, Fordham, the Alcazar Theater in Baltimore, and also Town Hall in downtown Philadelphia. Some other things that gave me an opportunity was Father Dennis Comey, who was the head of St. Joseph's University School of Industrial Relations. He asked me a number of times to come and help him with his mailings, some of his filing and other administrative work. So it gave me a perspective on what business life might be in an office in downtown. Other opportunities I had with Brother Fee, He had me make a number of trips for him so that I learned all about Philadelphia, where the streets were, so that in later years when I started to date young women, I knew where I was to go. I knew the neighborhood. I knew which trolley car to take, and it set me up for when I was going out to the dances. I also had opportunities from the prep. They helped me by letting me unload books for their school year when they started. I learned to do physical work as well as intellectual work at the same time. I also had a paper route. My route started on Master Street to Poplar Street, and from Broad Street to 20th Street. I think I had 100 papers. I sold them at 3 cents a piece, and I retained $1. So I was making $1 a day for 6 days a week. So I didn't deliver the Sunday papers. I think they were a little too heavy for me.
Jim, can you talk about your involvement in the transition from the school being a parish school to being an independent school?
I had lived in Chicago for a number of years, and I moved back into the area in 1984. And about a year or two later, I was at an alumni meeting out at St. Joseph's University when I ran into Father Michael J. Smith, who had been the president of the principal of the prep when I was a sophomore. He knew my relationship to the Jesu school in those days and up into the 60s. And he asked me if I would give Father George Burr a call. He said he needed some assistance, and he said with your background with the parish in the old days, you might be able to render some help. A couple of days later, I called up Father Burr, told him I was available, if there was anything I could do. He asked me to come down. We talked for a while. So I helped him for 2 or 3 years before the school became independent, helping him administratively with some of the accounting functions that was taking place, and any other thing I could do in trying to bring back people from my day. So in that couple of years, I put together a list of people who had grown up at my time, brought them back where we had 2 or 3 reunions. We had a couple of liturgical celebrations where we brought people back to Mass. And that was certainly a thing that brought people back, was the Jesu Church. There was a great love for it, and with the Jesuit priests that were here in our day.
So you have been a big advocate for our teachers serving on the faculty support committee. Can you talk about the importance of teachers making Jesu successful?
When I visit some of the classrooms here at the Jesu, what really excites me is to see their passion for teaching. They're both creative and innovative in trying to bring the children into the roles where they can enter the best high schools in Philadelphia. Recently, I have to pause here for a minute. Recently, in talking to the president of the school, he was telling me about the success of the children that were entering into some of the top schools in the area. In my day, the better students were getting into St. Joe's Prep. The others would go to Roman Catholic. And today, we have our children going into schools like Springside, Gwinnett Mercy, Marian Mercy Academy, the Prep, LaSalle High School, West Catholic Prep. So I can see that the devotion that they have to these students is being rewarded by where they're getting into school today. When you walk around the school and you see the discipline, the respect that the children have for their teachers and for visitors, it's kind of heartwarming to think of how things have changed over the last 60 years.
Jim, can you tell me, over those changes, what are some of the other positive changes that you've seen at Jesu over the years?
I think one of the positive changes, or I should say the continuation of things, would be the relationship between the Jesu School, the Prep, and St. Joe's University. I think that linkage has gone on since the late 1800s. It continues today, with St. Joseph's University offering scholarships to children that graduate from the Jesu and continue and graduate from high school. It continues with our association with the Prep, and that the tutoring of the students from the prep to come over to help out here at the school, with the students that come in from St. Joseph's University to help tutor the children after class. And that tradition continues today. The other things that are different, I noticed that the children are more involved in service. They're more involved in the mission of the school, that they can repeat the mission to you and what it means to them. I don't remember things like that in my day. We went to school, we went to church on Sunday, but we never talked about mission. Here I see this relationship between mission and service that continues in this school. I see the respect that the children have for their teachers. I think maybe in my day, maybe we took everything for granted. I don't see that taking place here. I see the children really enjoying what they're receiving in this school, but also the support that they're getting from those people that see the J Zoo as a landmark in the city of Philadelphia. What's important, we're developing future leaders for the city of Philadelphia, and that's really important when you think about how the city is changing.
Great, thank you so much. Jen, will you just point out, tell me a bit about the picture sitting next to you.
Picture here to my left represents the graduating class of 1945. If you look at the second row, and the person that is closest to me in that second row, that's what I looked like in those days. Not much change, is there?
Where's that located at, the picture taken?
This picture was taken outside or in front of the old Quaker school, which was on the southeast corner of 18th and Girard.
Okay. And then, Jim, can you just tell me what has been the most meaningful part of being on the JSU board for you?
I think the most meaningful part of being on the JSU board is by able to see the change and to be able to participate in that change. To see that how the city has changed over 70 years, but also how the JSU school, we can help to sustain it over the longer term. And I think that's important. You hear in most corporations, the critical thing today is sustainability. And I think that's what's critical for me, is the sustainability of the JSU school for future generations that are to continue. Especially when you think that this school has been here for almost 150 years. In another couple of years, we will celebrate 150 years. It'll be nice to see it come about to another 200 years.
Great. So I've gone through all of the questions. We have about 13 minutes of questions and answers. Yeah.
One.
Jim, can you tell us about the best day you've had at JSU and why?
I believe the best day that I had at the JSU was when Brother Joseph A. Fee asked me to become the Master of Ceremonies for the solemn liturgies that we had at the JSU Church. I think that was important to me because of the relationship that I thought I had with the Jesuits.
Great. And Jim, what would you like your legacy at JSU to be?
If I were to establish a legacy for myself, I would say he never forgot.
That's great. Thank you.
And cut.